All right then, let's get started. So I'd like to formally welcome everyone to the Peaceful Schools International Peace Education Conference that we're doing here today. And welcome to the St. Mary's University student panel. Today we're going to talk about peace education in our communities. First, we'll go around, we'll introduce everyone. So I'll call you by name and then just introduce yourself, maybe where you're from or where you are right now, what school you went to, and why you're here today. So Kayla, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Kayla Dunphy. I am a St. Mary's student. I am a fourth year international development and anthropology major, and I'm the senior program director with Peaceful Schools International.
And Megan?
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm a third year student at St. Mary's. I'm a commerce student studying economics and a human resource management certificate. I'm currently in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I'm the fundraising coordinator for Peaceful Schools International.
Oh, and Salman.
Hi everyone, my name is Salman and I'm a fourth year student studying accounting in my final semester now. I'm currently in Halifax as well and I am a former member of Peaceful Schools International for 2 years now.
And Darcy?
Hi, I'm Darcy Brownlow. I am a fifth year student studying anthropology at St. Mary's and I'm located in Halifax as well.
And Crystal.
Hi everyone, my name is Crystal Witter. I am pursuing a major in psychology and this is my last semester as well. I'm originally from Jamaica but currently studying psychology at SMU.
Cool. And my name is Michaela and I'm going to be the moderator for this panel today. So let's jump right in. And my first question, I want to kind of start with, what is peace education in your own words or your own experience? We'll start with the definition.
Do we want to go in order, or would you like to do it separately? How do you want to do it?
Let's start with you, Kayla. And then if you want to jump in and add something, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll just call on people as we keep going.
Okay. Peace education, I would view it as a form of conflict resolution training or peace education. It can kind of go both ways, where we learn about how to deal with conflicts and look at what we see as peace and making sure that we can maintain a peaceful environment within our lives and giving people the resources and tools that they need to do that. So we do that at a elementary level and all the way up to grown adults.
Salman?
Yeah, for me, peace education, I think Akela mentioned a lot of points. For me, peace education is all about, that awareness and to just ensure that we have a peaceful environment overall. One of the reasons, I was being part of the program is the fact that, it makes me very happy. It makes me very happy to see everyone living a peaceful life. And when we have the conflict resolution workshops, what really happens is that these children reflect on these experiences, and when they grow up, they reflect on these workshops. That's what makes them peaceful, and we all contribute to a peaceful society overall. Yeah.
Crystal?
Thank you. Personally, or more generally, peace education speaks to acquiring the skills and knowledge to aid in the process of resolving conflicts in their day-to-day environment and ensuring that we all live in harmony. But this, generally, the peace education is a strategy that we would use to ensure that our goal of having a peaceful community is achieved. More specifically, because since I'm from Jamaica, I know the experience of crime and violence and how the lack of education affects, or improves the society, and how we also connected my experience living in Jamaica to, going to Northern Ireland firsthand the experience or the strategies taken by various people to impart those skills and attitudes to improve like a peaceful society.
Thank you. And Megan?
Yeah, I agree with everyone. A lot of good points. I think a lot of it with peace education is also providing resources to make sure that everyone feels like they're in a safe environment. One of our goals for PSI is making sure every classroom is safe for all children. In a lot of our conflict resolution workshops, we all have different skills that we try to incorporate in with peace education. So for example, I think last year or the year before, our workshops were around active listening. So using skills in that and connecting them to conflict resolution to create peace in the classroom and making sure everyone is in a safe environment.
Thank you. And Darcy.
I think in teaching peace education, one of the most important aspects that we've touched on in our workshops before is finding common ground between different people and different groups, and empathy along with that, because I think to solve any conflict, it's very important to understand how many things people have in common rather than differences they have.
Oh, yeah. Anyone have anything to add from someone else? Okay, cool. Let's jump into the big question why we're all here today, and then we'll break that down into smaller questions. So do we have an ethical responsibility or obligation to teach peace education in schools?
Yeah, I can start. So yeah, I think that we do. I think that it's important that we all understand the value of peace and conflict education, and that we are able to develop those skills early on. And if you're able to develop them as a child, then you can have them grow and develop with you as an adult into becoming a leader or an adult. So someone who's working within the workforce and then within society. So then we can all manage our conflicts, and conflicts are a natural part of life. So making sure that we can manage those properly to create a more peaceful and happy society.
I'd like to follow up on what Kayla also mentioned. I too strongly believe that it is our ethical responsibility to teach peace, for more than one reasons, obviously, but the one closest to my heart is ensuring that history is not rewritten. And, I feel like many other skills, this is an important skill to develop, as Kayla mentioned, within youth, children, to give them the tools, because this is something that we all need to work on in our, day-to-day lives as adults, as university students. We've experienced many of that. And, having that foundation from the beginning of simple steps, to teach peace, or simple steps to take to deal with conflict is very important. And I feel like that's essentially what we did within the schools where we went to teach, breaking down the complex or, seemingly complex idea of conflict. And, one thing that was very enlightening to me, one of the first questions we asked students at various levels in the schools is what is your understanding of conflict? And hearing them tell you, they might not know the words per se or never heard it before, but hearing them give you examples of what conflict is very interesting to see. And, us being there to actually teach them, okay, these are the steps that you can take is very important. And I guess that was really well received from the students. And this is something that I believe should continue even beyond the level that we went to, and even in the university system.
Great answer.
Yeah, and I think just to add on that as well, with Peaceful Schools International and the program itself, we have the resources to teach peace education, and we have the opportunity, like us as students, we're given the opportunity to learn these skills ourselves, as well as to share them with others and share them with the children here and in Belfast. And I think given the opportunity, there's no reason not to share it with others. And I think it's great that we have the resources to give to them, for them to, build on these skills and bring it to them at a young age, and starting it then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the same as the others have said, we have the largest obligation to start teaching peace education at a young age, because a lot of the barriers and different viewpoints that people have when they get older, and different things that have impacted them usually aren't present at a younger age. So I found doing the workshops, children are much more open to share their feelings and their opinions. And I think at that age in schools, it should be just as important to teach peace as any other of the basic subjects that they would be learning.
And Solomon, you have anything to add?
I think everyone covered all the points, but I would just like to add that, peace education, like it provides the children with tools to live a healthy life and, foster a culture of peace in the community. It does have a longer, impact, which I think makes it, an ethical responsibility and an obligation to a certain degree, to preach for peace education. Yeah.
So I actually want to pull off of Salman's point there with the culture of peace. In your experience in university as young adults, do you think it's important that we continue to develop peace education, conflict resolution programming for young adults and teaching it to young adults and older adults instead of just kids as well?
Yeah, I think that it definitely is. I mean, even in university, you can see that sometimes people get kind of lost in our education and very focused around what we're doing. You're so busy. So I think it's important to highlight peace education within younger adults so that we can continue the development of conflict resolution and learning peace education tools. And at that kind of peak aspect of when they're really divulged in their education.
I think also like at any age, there's going to be conflicts that people are going to have to resolve. And even if you start at a young age learning these skills, there'll be different conflicts as you go through your life. So you might need different resources and different conflict resolution skills to deal with them. So I think at any age, it's always good to continue on with like learning these skills and really teaching the peace education and conflict resolution to all ages, young adults and older.
I think in, oh, sorry.
So, yeah, I was just saying that I agree with everyone, and I've seen this working in my past experience as the chair of SMUS's Board of Directors, where we had to one of our priorities for this year was to develop a conflict resolution policy, aligned with the university's conflict resolution policy as well. And, one of the needs for that is to really sensitize university students within SMUSA and beyond that, okay, this is something that is really important for the continuation of any organization or, small groups, or it can be a club or a society, just going back to basics of what we teach in the schools. I had to draw from my previous experience teaching conflict within the schools to apply to my work experience. And now, putting that down to paper, written as a policy, we found that it's important that we continue to ensure that peace education is something continuously taught within society. And it's very important because even as adults, I realize that it's more vulnerable. We're more vulnerable to conflict. And, conflict as adults is somewhat harder to manage because we're not as forgiving, I would say, as maybe children who they can brush off the conflict and go back to normal. So yeah, it's important that we continue to do so.
I agree with everyone. Oh, sorry, Darcy, you can go.
Okay. Just a quick one. I think that peace education is also important to continue for older adults, because I think in the past few decades in the school system, like for people our age, peace education has been growing. Like I definitely remember learning different things at the elementary school age, but I don't think that it was nearly as present maybe 30 to 40 years ago. So I think it's definitely important to address people, adults that are older, who may have not received as much peace education when they were children.
Yeah. as Darcy mentioned, even I think like peace education is important for all ages, like even adults. And as Crystal also mentioned that, you know, when we are adults, we are not very easily forgiven. So yeah, conflict resolution skills, I think it requires daily practice. We need to practice it on a daily basis to understand how we can resolve it better, how we can still maintain a positive attitude. And, you know, the tools and techniques are, you know, immensely helpful. So I personally believe that, you know, conflict resolution is a daily practice. And once we start learning from a younger age, we get better at it as we grow older with practice.
That's a really good point. We become very, very comfortable in dealing with conflict resolution when we learn from a young age. So I want to go back to something Darcy said. He talked about how he had experiences with peace education when he was young in school. I want everyone to think back to their time in elementary school, coming up through junior high, and then even in high school. What was your experience like with conflict resolution, peace education in classes or on the playground? Was it good? Was it bad? What could have been improved, etc.?
I'll go. So I remember back in elementary school, we had a system, we had peer support. So we had, I think we were in grade 6, where they would choose some students to be peer supports if there were any conflicts, say during recess or during lunchtime, that they would, so then kids can talk to other kids to have more of like a comforting, maybe conversation, maybe so it's more relatable instead of talking to like a teacher or principal. So I thought that was something that we had in our elementary school that was good for helping any little fights or conflicts that would happen either in classroom or on the playground.
I think that when I think back to my elementary school experience and my junior high experience, I don't remember many lessons on peace education, but I remember my school highlighting like people with differences and making it such a normal thing that people are different than you. And it was a really important factor in our school. We had a very diverse school, so we had like multicultural days all the time, and we would have different fairs and just kind of aspects of learning about other people's differences that kind of helped manage those conflicts. Like you didn't have as much of bullying. Like we didn't have a huge bullying aspect in our school just because we were a very small school, but also like everyone knew everyone, but also everyone really accepted differences. And if there was people picking on other people because of if they had disabilities or whatever, it was a very strong community that would shut it down pretty quickly. So I think that those aspects of peace education, like learning about differences and who people are and accepting other people, was very large in our school.
I can go.
I found a sort of similar thing in elementary school. I found there was quite a bit of talk about peace education, and it was a very positive atmosphere. But then when I got to junior high, I can't really remember any lessons on peace education or getting along with others. It seemed to completely drop off. And I think I found a similar thing doing the workshops in Northern Ireland, that once children get to the 13 and up range, they become a lot more secluded and less willing to share their feelings in like a public classroom space, which makes it hard to have dialogue with others.
Go ahead, Salman.
Yeah. As I was saying that, you know, when I remember from my primary school experience and my high school experience that primary school was mostly like, we wouldn't really talk about a lot of things. We would just listen to our teachers mostly. But in high school, we had more interaction in Bangladesh, I would say. And I still remember, a sentence my teacher once told, and that still gets me thinking. And that is, when someone faces like an awkward situation, not to look at them, to pretend not to look at them at all, because they will be more embarrassed. And I can apply that concept here, that these things were taught when we were in high school, but when we come to university, things get crazy busy, and we tend to lose a lot of practice about conflict resolution skills. But this amazing program, like the Peaceful Schools International, like this program has played a significant role in my life. It is important because we want this world to be a better place for everyone. And I personally believe, for my life, this program made it 10 times easier to solve problems when we learn to negotiate with peace in every situation. So yeah.
And Crystal, you have anything to add?
Yes, from my experience, specifically, we're taught within the homes, no fighting, no bullying. So I guess my peace education started from there. Elementary school level, we weren't taught like what we're teaching now about what is conflict. More so, it was about developing values of peace. Values of peace. I would highlight, treating everybody equally, the diversity, respect. Respect for another person's bag or book. So basic things that we learned in elementary school. That, thinking back on that experience now, I can say, okay, these were some ingredients for peace education, but it was not explicitly called, peace education. Junior high school or primary school, same thing, no direct curriculum around peace, but we did have students who would be in charge of maybe alleviating conflicts or dealing with conflicts if they ever occur. One recommendation I would say to make that experience a little bit better would be to identify what conflict is in the beginning of that lesson, and tackling it as that, and then incorporating the other values. So it's just like a perfect package of what peace education is.
Thanks. And speaking of a perfect package of peace education, this brings me nicely into my next question. If you guys could change or add one thing to school curriculum or school community, what would it be in terms of peace education? What would you like to see? If you could run your own school, what would you promote for peace education?
I guess since I touched on that, I would say peace education in all levels of the school curriculum, no matter, first year of university, second year, because it grows. And peace, for example, if I was to look at it now, I would say in first year of university, I wish I learned a little bit more about dealing with conflicts among different people from all over the world. We boast that we have an international community. So with that, going into second year, third year, we focus more on diversity and inclusion. And just to mention too that I'm currently doing a course on that, and just to see how diversity and inclusion is important for promotion of peace, and having everybody live in harmony is important. So I would incorporate that at all levels, because basic level, and then go up to more organizational stuff, or tying it into maybe business strategies of an organization or of a program in university.
I think that if I was to kind of go back and build what I would want to see in schools, is something that I found whenever we did travel to Northern Ireland, and that they have such an understanding of peace, where I found that here in our elementary schools in Halifax, they had an understanding of peace, but it wasn't as surrounding. Like, it wasn't like they were right in the middle of it. Like, whenever you're over there, they have the peace walls. So that demonstration of peace was very large. And I would like to see peace take a larger structure in a positive form within the elementary schools, and then carrying throughout. So making sure that peace is kind of it's a normal thing to talk about and and have within our schools, and maybe not in the form of peace walls, but like having it within the walls, within universities or in elementary schools or high schools even. And if you think about when you might not needed conflict resolution skills the most, would have probably been in, for me, it would have been high school or first year university. So having those skills available and so normalized around you, I think that that would create for a more peaceful environment within our curriculum as well.
Yeah, I think making it a comfortable topic to talk about, like you said, making it normalized and everything. And I think one of the main things that's already been covered is continuing that through all ages, kind of going back to, should it be introduced to young adults and older? Like, it's just something that, because we all grow into new experiences that have to be dealt with in different ways. So I think that's one of the main things that would be good to include, just to keep it also fresh in everyone's mind and just a part of everyone's like day-to-day life and learning experiences and all that.
I think that recently in the past few years, the age that children are starting to get into social media is getting a lot lower. And I think that at some level in schools, they should be teaching peace education and conflict resolution in terms of social media, because I think it's a common idea that there's a disconnect between being face-to-face and being online, and people can be quite insulting or rude online and think that it won't have the same effect on people that it would in real life. And I think that that should be started at a younger age, probably in elementary school.
Well, I have two ideas. One of them is inspired by, the Belfast trip, and that is what I have seen. What they do is that they reward the students for, the good things they have done in the entire week, and they call all the students and they share their experiences. What is the good thing you have done? And that is kind of like, that creates a peaceful environment overall, which is a great idea. Another idea I would say is that if I get to have my own school, I think peace is a very important part, and I would definitely like to integrate a peace and conflict module on a bi-weekly basis, so that we have scenarios and we have discussions, and that would be for all ages, all the classes, so that students develop a better understanding about what is conflict and how to deal with conflict and how we can always negotiate with peace. So yeah.
Oh, thanks a lot. So I'm going to change the subject just slightly. Teachers in Nova Scotia, in Northern Ireland, pretty much all over the world, a lot of them are very overrun with a lot of things that they have to do in their classrooms. People are always suggesting new things to go into curriculums that should be taught in classes, et cetera, et cetera. So what can we as community members who have 5 elementary schools in our area, what can we do to promote peace in our community so it's not, the whole responsibility is not landing onto teachers?
I would say the easiest way for that is to start within the household. Most of our values are taught within the household, and then extending that to the community through, project management or creating different programs within the community. I don't think that it's doing us much justice to leave peace celebration to Peace Day. Happy Peace Day, everyone. However, this should be normalized. It should be a continuous conversation, and it starts within the household. Then, from the household, you go into the community. I'm not sure about what happens here in Nova Scotia. I have no experience within the communities, but we have different community outreach programs in Jamaica. So like support groups or community centers where a lot of activities take place. So you have after school learning, you have like a homework program. So incorporating it like, you know, somewhere through there where the teachers don't have to feel the burden of organizing it themselves, and then extending it to the schools if, you know, some schools are not able to have don't have the resources to, you know, employ more teachers to put that in the curriculum.
I think to build off of what Crystal said, that, you know, the school isn't the only place where we learn our values, and we do learn them in the community. And I look back on how I've learned my values, and they come from extracurriculars that I did, after school programs, sports, with aunts, uncles, family members. So I think leading by example as well. So if adults learn how to deal with their conflicts and promote peace within their daily lives, and also promoting it throughout things like sports and different extracurriculars, so after school programs as well, and not just in the elementary schools. So making sure that it kind of surrounds our life and is a normal part in everyday lessons that we have.
I think I had the same thing. I have a lot of good memories growing up from different extracurricular activities, sports, and then even things like scouts, where you can learn different skills and have older children teaching younger ones, and then adults supervising the whole thing. And that promotes a lot of conversation between children and learning different skills and learning how to work as a team.
And I think, oh, sorry, someone you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So for me as well, like I feel that I have learned a lot from the extracurricular activities, you know, since the very young age, but also from schools, also from books, I would say. And it's often about, you know, taking initiatives like for the community. Like, let's just say if we are part, as Crystal mentioned, like if we are home, if we are, you know, part of the community, if going to the school, you know, it starts from the household. And we can definitely expand on that, and it should be continuous conversation as well. Always, you know, promoting on social media that, you know, normalizing, talking about mental health, talking about peaceful education. So yeah, I think all these are great points. That's all I had to say. Megan, you can go.
Yeah, I agree with everyone. They're all really good points. And I was just going to touch back on like extracurriculars and sports teams and different clubs and everything, the importance of learning and teaching peace education in different environments. Because it could be different conflicts you would face in a classroom versus on a sports team, or learning about peace education, conflict resolution, and sportsmanship, or different like things in clubs and extracurriculars. I feel like that's something important as well. Just different environments and conflicts that can arise in different activities and things that children might be involved with.
Great, thanks. So I'm gonna pull a phrase out of what Kayla said, leading by example. I consider all 5 of you to be excellent leaders in your communities. So how do you practice conflict resolution in your own life? How do you continue learning peace education, conflict resolution for yourself? And how do you lead by example?
I can start. I think that I work with conflict resolution in my life by constantly trying to learn how to be better. I mean, none of us are perfect, and I don't have the best conflict resolution skills, but I think that to say that I have the best conflict resolution skills would be completely wrong, because you can always work to improve them. So making sure that I'm taking whatever opportunity that I can to learn about how to deal with new conflicts in my life, and as they continue to change and develop, just like my roles in life will continue to grow, it's important to make sure that I'm learning constantly about how I can deal with conflicts in my life, and then bringing that into my everyday world so that other people can learn from that as well.
I think I'm a bit of the same way, especially having the mindset of there's always room to improve. There's always, you can always learn more through different experiences. And I also like to take the time to reflect on maybe past experiences or past times where I tried to resolve something, maybe things I did right, things I did wrong, things that I could improve on that, and just kind of have that mindset when I go through things.
Yeah, just touching on a couple points. When I face conflict, what I think about is what is the best approach in this situation, whether to compromise, whether to cooperate, whether to have more compassion. And that's how I make my decision. All right, if I made a mistake, I think the best way would be apologizing. Or if there's a conflict, the best way would be talking about it. Or sometimes if it's not, if it's fine not to talk about it, then probably very few times it happens that we can avoid the conflict. So I always think about going for the best approach and really using the professional sound judgment. What is the best thing to do in a given scenario? And of course, as Megan mentioned, like I also like to reflect on my past experiences. I think from there I can learn a lot, like what to do next. So yeah, that helps me a lot when I face conflicts.
I guess
That's
so.
all. You go.
Yeah, so in my experiences as a leader and setting like leading by example, I've tackled a lot of conflicts that I've faced in various roles. First, using patience and communication. Sometimes you're under the pressure of being the leader and having to give guidance to a number of people, and with patience you're able to analyze the situation to see how much harm, and the first thing would be to see how less harm you can create. But another thing I use is proper or effective communication, especially working with other people. And I have to go back to the basics of conflict resolution program. And it's here that I would say that this program really changed my life, because it takes you down to simple forms of conflict resolution, tips, like communication, taking some time to identify what the main aspects of the conflicts are and tackling them as such. So those 2 points of patience and communication is very helpful, or was very useful for me in my daily journey to solve a conflict if I ever that came up. But I guess of the two, the most important one is communication, because a lot of times we might not be able to solve the conflicts ourselves, and you have to look in yourself to say, okay, who has the resources or who is better able to deal with that conflict? And I've also drawn on that, working with Bridget closely and other individuals within the university to see, sometimes you just need to get professional help. I'm not a professional, I'm just a leader in my own area. And, those things really helped me while I had some of those positions.
I think one of the most important things, I said it earlier, if people are having a conflict, is to try and find some sort of common ground, whether it be between two individuals or two groups. And I remember when I was younger, my mom would always say that I can get along with everyone. And I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I think what I was good at was bringing people together that at face value you wouldn't assume would be hanging out. Maybe someone who's really sports minded and someone who's very into video games. But usually you can find at least one thing that they can bond over, and then that usually allows a lot more communication and getting over whatever conflict they're dealing with.
Thanks. I would say you are very good at getting along with everyone.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask everyone to put yourself back in a position where you were leading a class, leading kids, teaching them a conflict resolution. In that situation, what is important to remember when you're teaching conflict resolution skills? What do you need to think about for the kids?
I think that the most important thing that I would try and draw on is that I think a lot of the times we have this idea in our heads that conflict is bad, and it's wrong and we don't want it. And I think that one thing that I try and think about and project is that conflict is normal and that you're going to have conflict in your life. Not everyone's going to agree on everything. And making sure that you can understand the other person. And something that, I mean, you guys mentioned Bridget, and something that Bridget Brownlow always talks about is understanding is not necessarily agreeing, but you do have to understand. So I think that that's something that I try and focus on whenever I'm in classes or leading a class, or even if I'm in a conflict within my own life, is that understanding is really important to try and listen and communicate effectively.
Yeah. For me, I would say when I get to facilitate, I think about two things. Number one would be, to ensure that I ask a lot of questions so that we can get responses. We have active participation, high level of interaction. I think to create an open space, a safe space, so that everyone can share regardless. And it's not just about what they can learn from us. Sometimes we also get to learn a lot from these children. They're very talented at such a young age. Another thing that's in my mind when I get to facilitate is that I want to make sure that they feel appreciated. And we feel great when we get appreciated. It's in a way we are rewarded, and we want to participate more. We want to talk about small issues and resolve the conflicts. So yeah, these are the two things, top two things in my mind when I get to facilitate a class. Yeah.
One thing that I always think about is making it memorable for them. So making sure that they enjoy the workshops and they are going to remember it either like through their lives and like for the rest of their lives. Like trying to make it as educational as possible, which we do through our activities and our skits, but also making sure that they're having fun. Because if they have fun, they're going to be excited for the next year that we come, and they're going to remember it as they go through their school years in their life. And I feel like that's really important for me. Like I want to see smiles on their faces when we do activities, and when they ask us questions, like make sure that they're having a good time when we come and they're excited for the next time they see us.
When I go into the classrooms, first thing I always think about the grade levels, because we were teaching a lot of different grades. But one thing I made a point of my duties to always be interactive and personal. And yes, I know you might be saying, okay, we have a large group of class. How can you make it personal? Within my group, I remember us like walking through the aisle, speaking to, asking one student, going actually up to them and saying, like, without pressure, of course, but, seeing how engaged they are and encouraging them to say what they have to say and let them know that you can speak. This is a comfortable space. It's a safe space for you to speak. It's not us alone speaking to the kids, and I love to hear from them because I too learn. And it's heartwarming when they get the point that you're thinking about. I was like, wow, finally, like we're both on the same level. So that's heartwarming. And every class was a different experience for me. Every class was a different feel of understanding what peace is, but it all came back to the same thing of, values to solve conflicts. So those are some of the highlights of my experience with the classroom, and ensuring that fun is always the priority, fun with peace education. So perfect package. But yeah, looking back now, I feel somewhat nostalgic. Yeah, overall, that was their approach I used.
I think it's important not to set your expectations to be too specific in a workshop with what you want the resolution of it, I guess, to be, because especially in Northern Ireland, the resolutions that the children will have are usually quite different than maybe how you would think you would solve the problem in your head. But it's important to understand, coming from a different culture and a different place, that things are done sometimes in different ways, and that that's also okay, and to not force your own expectations on it.
Great, thank you. I'd like to thank Solomon because he pointed out that we facilitate workshops rather than teaching them. I used the wrong word. At Peaceful Schools, we work on facilitating new skills for kids. We are not teachers. We don't teach them things quite the same way. I have two more questions. I encourage anyone listening to us today, if you have questions for the panelists, put them in the Q&A session and I'll try to get to some of them. After my two questions, I'm also going to ask the panelists if they have any questions for each other as well. I know there's a couple of you that had to leave right at 1 o'clock, so I'm just keeping an eye on the time as well. So my second last question is for all of you, what would you recommend to your friends, to other young adults, to people who have just graduated high school? How can they continue their own peace education and conflict resolution education?
I think that being aware of your own understanding of conflict resolution, as you move on, we can try and implement it into schools as much as we can, but that's the only structure that we can implement teaching. So making sure that once you're graduating from that you're trying to carry it on yourself. So you're trying to understand your own conflict resolution skills and being self-aware and doing research. I mean, it never hurts to Google things, and there's lots written about conflict resolution, and there's talks that you can look at through YouTube, and looking at how you can improve and change, and reflecting on how you may deal with a conflict. So if I think about something that I've been through and then think, oh, well, that probably could have gone better than what I did, and thinking about, okay, how could I have approached it where maybe it wouldn't have ended so poorly, or if I go through something and it's like, okay, so that went really well. What did I do that was a lot better than what I did last time? So kind of reflecting on your personal conflict resolution skills, I think, would be the most important aspect in continuing your education.
Yeah, I think that if you're history minded, it can be valuable to study the history of various conflicts that have happened in recent history, because if you can understand the root of it and the various sides, you can apply it to current day conflicts and understand how they could possibly be resolved, and you can even break them down to be used on an individual conflict level that you might have personally.
I would say going back to the basics of, some of those values and attitudes we grew up with, having respect. I think it also consider, self-introspection and emotional intelligence. I know a lot of classes or courses, they speak to emotional intelligence, and sometimes we don't have that space to, actually put ourselves in a position and see what we identify as emotional intelligence. People skills is also very important to reduce, conflicts. And I know this might sound cliche, but conflict is not that complex level of trying to understand something, or if I want to become better. It's going back to the basics of, having patience, being a good listener, and communicating your feelings. Because sometimes conflicts are, we all know how some conflicts are started, wrong communication. So I would say for someone who wants to learn about dealing with the conflict, going back to the basics of understanding people, as Darcy mentioned, finding a common ground, and starting from the, just the basics. If you want to know about the history of all the conflicts in the world, or some of the ways you can ensure that those things happen, then research and educating yourself that way.
Yeah, I think encouraging people just to do as much research as possible, finding maybe different resources that they find they could incorporate into their own lives and their own experiences. But I think there's a lot of information out there that we can all take in and all look up. And I think it's always helpful to just keep that, keep up to date with different things that happen in the world and things that have happened and how society has changed from them and all that. And I think just encouraging to keep researching and keep up to date and all that is good.
All the great points were already brought up, but I would just like to touch on empathy. And I think empathy is the most important aspect here. Sometimes we need to put ourselves in their shoes to understand the problem, because we do not necessarily understand the problem if we can't imagine us going through the similar situation. So yeah, for all the graduates, all the students in school, in high school, I would say it is important to practice empathy on a daily basis to understand how others may feel. Yeah, communication. Communication is always the key to resolve conflicts.
Thanks. Those are great answers. So my last question, all of our panelists are going to be very familiar with it, and that is, what is peace? In your own words, your own thoughts, what is peace?
I feel like we ask this question so much, and then it's you kind of don't forget how big of a question it is. But don't forget. I think that peace is it's about kindness and being accepting and open-minded. I think that's how I view it.
I can go on all day talking about peace, but I would just like to keep it short and say that peace for me is all about, the mutual respect we have for one another, respecting the boundary of others, and always trying to ensure that everyone is safe. It's an inclusive environment. Everyone's happy. So that is what, peace is all about for me, in my opinion.
For me, peace is about living in harmony with one another despite our odds, and coming to terms of trying to deal with those things that, like any aspects that threaten harmony. And with harmony comes a lot of compromise. With harmony comes communication. Again, with harmony comes having empathy, as Salman mentioned, and accepting people as they are and not trying to change them. A lot of conflicts in the world start from one group trying to change another group, and not having the respect for people's boundaries. So overall, just having peace is defined as, for me, harmony, and using those values of love and genuinity and respect to create that environment where we all can live in harmony as one and not view ourselves as different or, highly of ourselves.
I think a lot of the same things, having empathy for others and understanding to be able to find a common ground, because there's no way you can solve a conflict and have peace without both sides being able to sit down and talk to one another and understand each other's issues.
It makes me think of when we ask this question to the classrooms, like the answers we get from all the children and everything, that peace can be in anything you want it to be. Like we'll get answers like it's in friendship, it's in them playing their favorite sport, eating their favorite food, they could find peace. Something that they find enjoyable and they feel comfortable and happy, they see as peace. And I think that's one thing that I would define it as well, is something that that makes you feel good, makes you feel happy, and things that you can find it in everyday life.
Great. Thank you very much for all of your answers. Do any of the panelists have any questions for each other? We have about 4 minutes.
I would what is the highlight of all the like classes? Do you remember one moment that stuck out to you? And what would that have been?
I think one of my favorite memories of being in the classes was we asked that question, what is peace? And one of the kids said his grandmother's apple pie. And I just thought it was just such a genuine, happy answer. And he was like, I want some now. And I just thought, like he has this vision of him sitting, eating his grandmother's pie, and it's peaceful. And that's where he finds his peace. And I thought that was just that was my favorite answer that I've gotten. So, yeah.
Gosh, there's just so many. Like, I just remember just enjoying all of it. But I think just seeing, I think it was our first class, and someone might be able to help out, but because we're in the same group, just the excitement of some of their faces, knowing that we're coming, like just seeing their faces light up when we walk in the room. Because, they don't get too many visitors. So just them with the smiles on their faces as soon as you walk in, not even introducing yourself yet, just them excited to like see you and being ready to like play the activities, watch our skits, like everything that I think that is just good in itself.
Yeah, as Megan mentioned, like it is actually the best feeling when you go back to the classroom and when the children, they tell you that how excited they were and how excited they are, and they are always looking forward to attending this workshop. I think it is the best feeling of the world when you go to the classroom and see how happy they are, how excited they are to learn something new, to learn something more impactful. And yeah, I think that was the best part, Megan, as you mentioned.
I think a similar thing, just even on a bigger scale to what Megan said, one of the schools we went to when they had their morning assembly and they let us participate with it, just to see, I don't know how many kids it was, maybe like 500 freaking out that were there and like wanting to ask questions. And that's so valuable in being able to facilitate the workshops, because if you don't have that excitement, it's a lot harder to engage with the children.
For sure. Well, I'd like to thank all 5 of you for participating today. Thank you for your invaluable opinions and expertise and experience. It was a great conversation, and I hope we can do it again sometime. And I'd like to thank everyone watching for coming today. And we hope to see you at the youth panel later on this afternoon, where the kids will be answering a lot of the same questions. So thanks a lot and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.